How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Next Go Wins TV. Coach Javi here. And as you guys know, well, if you've been watching the channel long enough, you'll know I'm an Arsenal fan. Been an Arsenal fan for a really long time. When I try and do all of these types of tactical analysis or immediate reaction videos, and I just talk about the matches, especially if it's a match that had Arsenal in it, I try and be as unbiased and as objective as possible, because every time I see these pundits and every time I see people on YouTube and just people giving their thoughts and their reactions, there's always a little bit of bias when you find out what team they support. It's almost like they have a little bit of favoritism. They might not know that they're doing it, but you can always tell it's there, just the way that they talk about the players, the referees, how the match played out. So I try my best to look at it from a neutral perspective and just as objectively as I can. And I'm going to do a tactical analysis video on this match. You guys, if you haven't watched the match, great, because I'll break it all down for you. If you did watch the match and you were curious to see kind of how it played out or why Newcastle were better than Arsenal, that video is going to go up in a little bit if it's not already by the time you're watching this video. But what I wanted to start doing is just immediate post-match reactions, just so you guys can get my thoughts as soon as the match is over, as soon as the referee has blown his whistle, what I thought. And I'll be honest with you guys, Newcastle absolutely destroyed Arsenal. If you guys watched Arsenal versus Manchester City just a couple days ago, Arsenal were a far, far superior team over Manchester City. They high-pressed, they won the ball in good areas, they looked miles better. This game reminded me of that match, except now Arsenal were Manchester City and Newcastle were Arsenal. I knew, or I had a really good feeling, that Eddie Howe was going to not sit back. He was going to have good defensive structure, don't get me wrong. He was going to lock it up defensively. But he was not just going to sit back. He was going to go and attack, and he was going to play the match, even though they were at home up 2-0, he was going to play the match as if they were down 2-0. And I think that was the best tactical decision that he could have made. Because if you sit back, I think Arsenal would have picked them apart, they would have found some holes, and I think it would have kept them in the game. The fact that in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the match, Newcastle high-pressed, and every single one of their first touches was forward. As soon as they won the ball off the transition, it was forward. Can we get the ball to Isak? Can we get the ball to Anthony Gordon? I think it threw Arsenal off, because I think Arsenal thought, okay, well, we're going to have a little bit of possession. They're going to try and keep us away from scoring, and we're just going to be able to keep the ball, and eventually it's going to be hard for us, but we're going to try and find these little gaps and these little holes. Arsenal were not prepared for Newcastle to go in and high press them like they did. And when they did, I think it, like I said, if you watch that goal that Anthony Gordon scored off of the high press when David Raya tries to play into Declan Rice, that was the exact same situation that Arsenal had against Manchester City when Manchester City tried to play out and then Kai Havertz missed the goal. It was almost identical if you go back and look at those two plays. So the fact that Newcastle took over what Arsenal was doing so well in the Manchester City game leads me to believe that, one, not only were they so confident that they were the better team, but two, they surprised Arsenal with that tactic. And I think Mikel Arteta really had no solution for it, because like I said, if you're going to high press, then typically the space is in behind. Newcastle did a really good job of making sure that space in behind was never really a threat. And then when they'd go on high press, when you have players like Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak, Bruno, Joelinton even played really well, I thought. I mean, they made Arsenal look really, really bad. And as the Arsenal fan in me, I'm a little bit disappointed, because I'm like, obviously Arsenal are supposed to be title contending this year. We're trying to win the Premier League, and I know we're not going to do it, but if we're not going to win the Premier League, and if Liverpool pretty much at this point has wrapped it up, you would think that these are the tournaments that we would have won. Like, I know it's the Carabao Cup, and everyone says the Carabao Cup doesn't mean anything, but everyone who says the Carabao Cup doesn't mean anything are the people who just got knocked out of the Carabao Cup. Every time you see a team get knocked out, it's like, oh, it was just the EFL Cup. Doesn't really matter. It does matter. It does matter, especially when you're a team that hasn't won many trophies, and now the pressure's starting to mount a little bit on Arteta, because he's had this project for so long that you see the progression of where it's going, but at some point it's got to yield some results, and the results really are trophies. How many trophies has he won? I mean, won the FA Cup. Was it with the Community Shield that he won? So it's disappointing from an Arsenal perspective. Newcastle, on the other side, are a team that I believe this is going to be their third time playing. This could be their third or fourth time. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys can look up the stats. Being in the final of the Carabao Cup, of the EFL Cup. They recently just lost. I believe was it Liverpool that they lost to? I can't remember, but I watched. If you watch the documentary on Newcastle, brilliant documentary, shows how they get to the final and they lose in the final. This time, I seriously think they have a very, very good chance of winning it. We'll see what happens in tomorrow's match, because if Tottenham holds on, and if Tottenham manages to progress into the final against Newcastle, I think that match is, Newcastle's winning it all day. The way that they've been playing, the players that they have, Eddie Howe, brilliant manager. I have a lot of respect for Eddie Howe. I think Newcastle are going to win the EFL Carabao Cup if Tottenham progress. If Liverpool beat Tottenham, then I think it makes it difficult. I still think that they have a really good chance of winning it, only because Liverpool have to be really careful. They're in a position in the table right now where they can't drop any points and let Arsenal sneak back in. They have to try and get as many points as they can in the Premier League to win the Premier League. So whenever you give them more competitions, when you give them, Champions League, and you got the FA Cup, and then you got the EFL Cup, now you're starting to risk injuries. You're starting to risk you're put in a tough spot of, do I play the best team or do I give everyone some minutes here and there? And I think Arne Slot's going to have to make that decision. How important is him winning the Carabao Cup? Because he could go all out and risk injury, and if it doesn't pay off, they might still be out. If it does pay off, then they have another match, again, against Newcastle in order to try and win the Carabao Cup. But it's a tough decision to make, because one bad decision like that, if he puts in a player for a little bit too long, next thing you know, they pull a hamstring, they tear an ACL or whatever, and that could let the Premier League kind of open up again. So I'm not sure what Arne Slot's going to do, but I do believe that Newcastle, based on this performance, based on the performance in the first leg, based on who they have on the pitch, Eddie Howe is their manager, I am backing them right now to win the Carabao Cup. I think tomorrow's performance with Liverpool and Tottenham is going to tell us a lot about how serious Arne Slot is. But I'm going all in. I'm telling you guys, if Tottenham makes the final, I think Newcastle wins the final 3-0. All the injuries that Tottenham have, they're not in the best moments right now. Another game for Tottenham gives them less time to recover from all their injuries, and they have like a starting 11 of injured players. So Newcastle's in a good spot, man. They can go all out on the Carabao Cup. Absolutely. They just lost it. They're trying to get revenge for losing in the final not too long ago. This is a really good opportunity for Eddie Howe to win a trophy. And as much as people want to say Carabao Cup doesn't matter, it matters. It matters a lot. And especially for some of the smaller teams, or not the smaller teams, but some of the teams that for sure are not going to win the Premier League. Newcastle for sure are not going to win the Premier League this year. Obviously. For them, they're struggling to see if they can even make top 4, top 5 in the Premier League. So, put all your eggs in this basket. Newcastle, go for it and just see if you guys can win a trophy, because I do believe Eddie Howe deserves that. As an Arsenal fan, final thoughts, very disappointed. Not necessarily with the performance and the effort, because I think all of that was there. I'm disappointed at the fact that we should be in the final. We should be winning trophies. And in the end, Eddie Howe, tactically much better than Mikel Arteta, surprised them with the game plan. Arsenal weren't ready for it. They were back at St. James Park. So, yeah, unbelievable performance from Newcastle. Those are my thoughts. Let me know, guys, in the comment section down below what you guys think. Peace.